law, who's representing Congressman Kelly. Greg, Alan Dershowitz, who I think is considered one of the top constitutional lawyers in the nation, he's on Maria Bartiromo, I'm thinking, saying that, hey, of all the cases he's seen out there, he thinks this is the one that may have the most merit. Can you walk our audience through what you are going to argue and Congressman Kelly are going to argue, and why it fell to Congressman Mike Kelly from north of Pittsburgh and south of Erie to do this for the nation? Is he off mute?
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yeah, here you go. You're not now, Greg. You're good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Hi, and thanks for having me on the show, Steve. I'll give you the basics.
Okay.
The Pennsylvania Constitution allows voting in one of two ways. One is in person. The other is if you qualify as an absentee ballot elector in Pennsylvania. So absentee ballots are permitted under the PA Constitution if you are in the military, you're away from your voting district, if you're too ill or disabled to vote, if you have religious reasons that preclude you from voting in person, if you or if you work for the county. And span that list to anybody for any reason, which is what Act 77 did, the law in PA that expanded mail-in balloting to anybody for any reason. You would need a PA constitutional amendment to do it lawfully. And the Pennsylvania legislature, in recognition of that, started the process to amend the Constitution to allow mail-in balloting. But then for some strange reason decided to go ahead and proceed to enact Act 77 and act like it's already valid law, not wait. In order to pass a PA constitutional amendment, you have to enact it in 2 consecutive legislative sessions, and then you have to put it up to a vote of the Pennsylvania electorate, a ballot question. And you can do it on an emergency basis if need be under the Constitution. So you can do it quickly, but you have to get the will of the PA electorate on the question before you can change the PA Constitution. They didn't do that here. They just went ahead and enacted, Governor Wolf signed it, Act 77, they implemented widespread mail-in balloting before the constitutional amendment. Ironically, when that constitutional amendment comes around for a public vote, as it eventually will, because they did start the process, people will be sending mail-in ballots to decide whether they're allowed to send in mail-in ballots, which is a little. So we recognize a year after the statute was passed, it was unconstitutional. Mike Kelly and others that are plaintiffs in this case, Sean Parnell, were upset to see how mail-in ballots played out. And they engaged lawyers like myself to review the situation and see if there was anything that could be done. And that's when it was determined that what they had done was unconstitutional. And those arguments were raised, as soon as we recognized they existed, basically, which was belatedly. I was engaged on Friday. We filed the complaint on Saturday at 4 a.m. So that's the basics of that case.
Greg, let me just ask you, because I think a lot, particularly the opposition, are going to say, hey, the legislature in Pennsylvania, last time I checked, I think is controlled by Republicans, just an observation. This thing went on. It wasn't done in the dark of night. It kind of had a process. Why was this never brought up at the time, or why did no one go and sue at the time? Why are we doing it 3 weeks after we've already got a vote, and they're going to argue a vote that you didn't like because you wouldn't do this if Donald Trump was leading? Mike Kelly wouldn't do it if Donald Trump was winning.
No one who realized it was unconstitutional apparently wanted to challenge it. They were fine with it, I guess. And the rest of us didn't realize it was unconstitutional. Not everybody walks around knowing about Supreme Court precedents from the 1800s and the 1920s in Pennsylvania and understands the ins and outs of what is and is not constitutional in terms of how voting laws are changed in Pennsylvania. So unfortunately, whoever realized it was unconstitutional any sooner than these plaintiffs didn't choose to raise it for whatever reason, and the rest of us didn't realize it. So that's why it didn't happen.
Greg, why does Dershowitz say that of all the things he's seen out there, he thinks you've got the cleanest case and really the thing that's got it? And I think he implied really what has to go to the Supreme Court for a decision. Why? What is it about your case that Dershowitz is even saying, I think this is the strongest case out there as I look at everything?
I haven't yet heard his comments, and I'm definitely going to be anxious to go read them when we're done. But if I had to guess, I would assume it's because in our case, unlike all the other cases you probably have been reporting about, all the other cases require clear and convincing evidence of sufficient amount of fraud to overturn the result of the election, which is an enormous burden to try and carry in court. and very difficult to gather that kind of evidence very quickly. Our case is purely legal issues. All the parties involved have already said on the record with the court that they agree it's purely legal issues. Was Act 77 constitutional or not? We believe very strongly the law clearly shows it was not. And then the question boils down to what's the remedy if the court agrees that it's not constitutional? What should be done about it?
I take it the remedy that you're looking for is to toss the whole thing out and what is your remedy? What do you think what in your mind is a remedy to something this draconian?
So in the complaint itself, we asked that the court issue an injunction preventing certification of any count that includes unauthorized illegal votes that are contrary to what's allowed under the Constitution. So, and we also asked or suggested that the court could throw it to the Pennsylvania legislature to make determinations with respect to at least delegates for vice president and president through the Electoral College. So, the legislature and the governor together enacted this law, made this mess. They're ultimately going to have to figure out a solution when it's declared unconstitutional. But what we want the court to do is enjoin any certification of a vote that includes unlawful votes. And
your and I just want to make sure your definition of unlawful votes in this situation is essentially mail-in votes that were not gone through the traditional absentee vote process. All the 2.6 million votes, 2.4 million of them, or how many? 80 or 90% of them is what you consider basically illegal votes.
So illegal votes would be mail-in votes. Right now, I should clarify, I suppose, that obviously mail-in votes that were proper absentee votes would be okay, and mail-in votes that, for whatever reason, were carried to the polling place and they voted in person would possibly get around the problem as well. So it's not the entire 2.6 million. A substantial percentage of those.
Greg, we've got about a minute left. What's the process from here? You filed at 4 a.m. on Saturday morning. The clock's ticking. Safe harbors on December 8th. Electoral College meets on the 14th. What's the timing of your suit? When do you guys get your first hearing, and when do you start rolling?
Already had preliminary scheduling conference with the Commonwealth Court today. We're expected to file briefs on jurisdictional issues tomorrow by 9 a.m. The court will hopefully schedule on an expedited basis the remaining hearings necessary to resolve the case thereafter. We filed in the Commonwealth.
So you think this is right? You think this is something that powers through Thanksgiving weekend?
I mean, it's something that could be decided as quickly as within a few days of now.